to another captivating interview on Spark Igniting Minds. Get ready to transport it to a world of magic and wonder as we delve into the mind of incredibly talented fantasy fiction writer Saurin Desai. With a passion for myths and fables and all things fantastical, Saurin's curiosity knows no bounds. From exploring the impact of ancient texts on creativity to mentoring thousands in the art of writing, Saurin's journey is nothing short of extraordinary. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be enchanted by the words of this TEDx speaker and creative powerhouse.
Hi Saurin, welcome to Spark Interviews, and it is a great pleasure, I can say, to have you here. And I have seen you from past 2 years or so. You have been a stalwart to the Spark, I can say. And the way you have helped us and the way you have supported us, I'm really thankful to you, Saurin. With that note, I'll start. And I have seen your writing also. The way you write, the very first day when I saw one piece of writing which you wrote for Spark, it was so creative. The choice of words that you use and the impact that it has on audience is incredible, I can say. So, Saurin, I'm very, very happy to have you here. And my first question to you is, how did you start this journey of writing? What inspired you to get into this field?
So, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me over.
Yeah.
Like you said, we've known each other for 2 to 3 years, but this is the first time we're meeting face to face. However, every single time I've interacted with you, whether it's been over, a phone call or whether it has been through WhatsApp, your warmth plus your energy has always come through. And that has been my inspiration to constantly stay connected to you and Sparks.
Okay.
So if anything, it is because of you and because of the way you come across that allows me,
thank you so much, Saurin, for that.
So thank you for being that, and please always stay that way. It's you are the, I'm not, for Sparks and for many other things, you are the stalwart. You are the foundation and the pillar on which everything stands. So thank you for the great work.
Okay. And
to start with, how did I start? So, there's this idea of midlife crisis, quarter life crisis that people talk about.
Yeah.
I had a crisis like that even before it was fashionable to have a crisis. So I had a crisis in my college days.
Okay.
So I'm an engineer by qualification. I'd studied for nearly 7 to 8 years in a technical space before I started my engineering, right from my 8th standard. And by the time I got into my engineering, I felt that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And this was the first year of engineering, right? And somehow this feeling, came over me that I'm not in the right field. I'm not, this is not where I belong. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I kind of had this feeling. So I had a word with my parents and they said, it's a new field. Just give it a go. Try it out for a while. Don't just give things up just like that. I said, okay. And somehow I did really well in my engineering, but that feeling persisted.
You completed
my engineering. I completed
good.
4 years of engineering. I, had a placement at the end of it. I was, I think, amongst the 2 or 3 in my entire class that had a placement. But somehow and I even did an internship at a factory for 6 months. So I was more or less staying in that factory because it was at a distance. And all of that experience told me that if I stick around with engineering or an allied space, I will not be happy.
Right.
It just was this
there was something inside
Absolutely.
you,
I could not really put it into words.
Yeah.
So I told my parents I'm not continuing with my engineering, and they're like, what will you do? I said, I have no idea. I'll figure something out. They said, okay, take a year or so, but eventually you have to figure things out. I said, okay. So at that time, I just started randomly taking up workshops. Random workshops I would attend. So, A, B, C, D, without any head or tail or why am I attending it, right? One of the workshops I attended was a radio jockeying workshop. Right? Just for this was 2000. right, around 2000 or 2001. And I attended the workshop. It was good fun. I did not have a voice for radio, but what I found out is that everyone enjoyed the writing that I did. You know?
Okay.
I was surprised. I was like, okay, this is interesting. So the trainer, he knew someone who was looking for a writer.
Okay.
And this was connected to radio. They were doing some programs for radio, and he said, try it out.
Mumbai.
In Bombay. Yeah, it was Bombay and Mumbai. Yeah, absolutely. I said, okay. So I went there, and he said, okay, you know, and today it's been 23 years that I know him, Vivek Salian. So he's like now an elder brother, you know, a very good friend, a mentor. But at that time he said, okay, let's see, get started.
So you started your writing journey?
Just like that.
Just like that?
Yeah, without any background, without any...
For a radio you wrote first.
It was for so it was they were a production house. They were, you know, they were making websites. They were, you know, looking to make programs for radio. So I just, you know, said, okay, let's see.
Okay.
I remember the first show I wrote for, it was for the Sonora Tiles. So they were doing a show, you know, so we were doing a show for them on All India Radio. So that was the first thing I actually wrote for which I got paid. And that's how it started.
And then I think your confidence
It was,
up, and then you
no,
that
honestly,
as your career.
The first show, I remember the first show I wrote for, it was for Sonora Tiles, and we were doing a small capsule for them, and that's what I started writing. And, you know, they liked my work, Vivek and the team, and then I continued writing with them. The journey from there on was not as if, you know, I had found a calling and this is it, and now I'm going to dedicate my life, you know, to this. I suffer from imposter syndrome. So I always felt I was not good enough. Okay. Right? So I said, I write, but you know, maybe, you know, they don't know. That's what I used to think. They don't know what writing is, so maybe I can get away with it. But someday someone will find out I don't know how to write really well. My grammar is atrocious. I, you know, don't know how to think. So I used to constantly have these conversations with myself. Okay. Right? No one was telling me this. I was telling this to myself.
Do you know, Saurin, even great writers also will have that kind of feeling in them, that whether my writing is good, whether my writing has reached people, this kind of feeling is there.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe I may not be able to make a career in writing. Okay. So I should try something else also. Yeah. So I you know, joined an insurance company, you know, tried selling insurance. I was very, very bad at it. I you know, joined a corporate, you know, through someone for a while, but I just could not, you know, see myself working in a 9 to 9, but I could not see myself at a cubicle, you know, doing the same kind of work. It just was not me. So invariably, no matter what I did, I came back to writing. Okay. So for the longest of times, I was writing content and copy. So I would, you know, a website copy, scripts for radio, or, you know, anything else that needed to be written, presentations, etc. But being from Mumbai, you know, it was called Bombay then, I always had this, you know, film industry around me, you know. You know,
Bollywood is very close,
so
close to you.
So I attended a workshop, started writing a script, dabbled in some script writing here and there. Nothing serious, nothing major, but joined some, you know, couple of clubs.
You started your writing journey, you started as a copyright or
as a copywriter.
As a copywriter.
As a copywriter, content writer for the radio, you know, production house. And then I dabbled with many things. Poetry and, you know, like I said, film writing, script writing, animation, all kinds of things. I dabbled with many things. Right. But I never really, and this is one of the things that I learned very late, is that, you know, there's this concept called staying on the bus, which means you get onto a bus, not literally a bus, but, you know, metaphorically a bus. I forget who, I read this on James Clear's website. I forget who actually came up with this term. But the idea is you start something, you stick with it. Long enough for it to give you results. Right. If I get onto a bus and I keep getting off the bus and going back and starting on a new bus, I'll never really get anywhere.
Yes.
Right? But this did not occur to me. I was like, I need to enjoy this. I need to be good at it. So I would get onto something, try it out for a while, and then 2, 3, 6 months later, I would stop it. I would take something else up. I would try some. So I got a lot of experience of a lot of things, but I never really got down to mastering anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to understand it. So I went all over the place. I traveled all around the metaphorical city before I understood, that I need to settle down onto one thing, focus on it. And then I started focusing on content writing. So I started working for, clients. I started working with agencies, with others, and I started offering them my service as a writer, because I also needed to get paid. So right from startups all the way to, major billion-dollar conglomerates, I've written for them, right from their website copy to, YouTube videos to, every kind of social media copy.
Writing you
Anything
have
you can
tried.
think of. I have done white papers, all kind of things.
Research also you must have done.
Yes.
Research papers also.
Also, I've written an entire white paper, for a blockchain company.
Oh,
So-
that's really great.
Yes,
Saurin,
I did
by
what
the
I had
way.
to make
Yeah.
to earn money.
And finally, where did you find your forte? What was your
So, like I said, I tried poetry, I tried comics, and so I would dabble in all of that. And of all the things that I wrote, I enjoy poetry, right? I enjoy writing poetry, I enjoy teaching poetry. But what I really started to enjoy was fantasy fiction. Right? That was the one thing that I kept coming back to. Even in my reading, I would keep coming back to that. Right? So I like the speculative fiction, science fiction, etc., alternate histories, etc. But fantasy fiction, I just have this feeling that magic is real. Right? There is real magic is how I feel, right? And so it gives me immense joy to read a good book, in the fantasy space, or watch a good movie.
How do you get into that non-existent world? Because fantasy means it is not something which is existing, something which is not real. But you have to go there, and again, there also you will have to find realism bring realism into that fantasy.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, and again, this is my way of looking at it. Does not mean that this is the only way. If anyone was to tell me that this is the only way in which something is to be written or something is to be understood, I would not accept it, right? And that is what I also tell anyone that I mentor, that just because I am telling you something does not mean that this is the only way, right? This is my way, works for me, try it out, right? So anything that I share is what I've experienced and I'm sharing. Does not mean that this is the only way. It just means it works for me. Has been working so far. I've always been an escapist, right? In my head, I'm always escaping to other places.
Okay.
Right? So, like even when I was talking to you about how I did not continue with my studies, right? And I've had this thought before as well. I've spoken about this before as well. I was like, what if I had continued with my engineering and I had done my MBA? And what if, right? I could have written on the side like others have, right? What if I had given my GMAT, GRE? What if I had gone abroad and settled down in the US? Or what life would that have been, right? So I would,
So
many times.
how do you feel like if you would have gone there? What would have been?
That's for another conversation, off camera.
Okay, fine.
But I don't think I would have, not written. I would have somehow drifted, into writing maybe later, but I would have, gotten into writing. Maybe I would have worked for some years and then I would have quit everything and I would have started writing. I don't know, right? All speculation. But I've always done that. So for me, this idea that there is another world, right? That is, not possible considering the limitations that we have in terms of our senses, magic,
common
etc.
people cannot imagine a world which is not there.
But
Isn't
I
it?
can,
But you
it
can
kind of
do that.
feels, then many others, but it kind of feels like, there is this universe out there, another universe where magic exists. People like us can do magic. And just that thought, brings me so much joy that I started, even writing short stories, a little bit of, trying to understand how to write fantasy fiction. And I've just started, honestly,
Did any of the fantasy writers inspire you?
Absolutely.
Who are those?
So the grandfather of them all, Tolkien, right? Lord of the Rings is my favorite. But I also enjoy Neil Gaiman's work.
Neil Gaiman, is a fantasy
Yes. I love his work. I enjoy writings by Ursula Le Guin, Brandon Sanderson, many of them, right? But the main thing that I realized is that even in all of that, escapism, it's not the right word. It's not about just escapism. But even in all of that,
escapism, but it is going into a different world altogether.
But
being there,
yes, but there is a message that is real and for us, right? And that when I started to see that all these authors who are successful, who I enjoy reading, actually have something to say.
Yes.
That is real.
Yes.
That is authentic. That is meant for this, space. It's not meant for some other world. It is meant for us.
Yes.
But it is covered in this, fantasy, magical. So as I went into those books, into that journey, I realized that all of them had something that they wanted to say, which they realized that if they were to just say it in plain words, people would not take it. But if it was put in this form, I don't know whether they did it intentionally, whether it just happened, but every single one, like if you look at Lord of the Rings, there's so many, whether you read the book or watch the movie, there are some differences, but irrespective of that, everything that happens in there, when I go through it the second time and the third time or the fourth time and I think about it, I'm like, there's so much to learn from this character, and there's so much that that I can apply. Right? I may never face a dragon, or I may never face a world where there is a ring that needs to be destroyed, but the learnings are real. And when I got that, the thrill that I went through me, that I can do the same. There's so much I would like to put out, but it seems so boring, so banal to just say it in, this is what I learned. This is, but the moment I said, can I turn this into some sort of a story? And just that thought that I could take something which is my truth. Okay, not the truth, but my truth, my experiential truth. And if I can put a story around it, and if I can present that, maybe people will accept it, better, and they will be able to absorb it better. Just that thought.
And this has been the trend of the day, I can say, Saurin, because all these youngsters, especially 17-year, 18-year-old, I think they are enamored by this fantasy writer, very, very Harry Potter.
Rowling, J.K. Rowling. Harry Potter, okay.
J.K. Rowling's writings, everybody has been copying now, and in the younger generation, it has become the trend. They're writing about werewolves, they're writing about
wizards and magic and wands and spells and absolutely.
This has been the trend. That's what I can say. And yes. And coming to your comic, you have not only tried, you said you have tried many things in writing, and comic is one of them. And comic writing, I feel it is very difficult because you will have to even do the sketches and also write the dialogues for each character, isn't it? Yes. I was very much, mesmerized or very much attracted to this blondie, in the Herald. We used to get that small every day one blondie.
The comics were the first thing I would pick up and read in the newspaper.
And I used to love that. Only four frames used to be there, and there used to be a kind of humor in that, and I also enjoyed Richie Rich, then all those comics that used to come that time.
Absolutely.
And what inspired you to get into that comic writing? And
so first of all, I don't sketch. I've had collaborators who have worked with me on the sketching part of it. So I would take care of the concept and the writing part of it, but the sketching was done by others. Now, this reason why I started writing, working on comics is exactly what you just shared. I've grown up on comics. Right, I would have devoured Phantom and all these comics that when we were young. I would have read everything, especially Phantom. Phantom was my favorite comic. Yeah, and as I grew up, I said, why should I not also try?
Have you worked on some character, like you have your own character which you have created?
I have not. I've worked on 2-3 concepts, right? So one of the concepts is this concept called invisible people.
Oh.
Right. So the idea is that this species where they are human-like but they're invisible. Right. So they have all technologies like we do. They have our kind of life, except that they are all invisible. Right. And the humor.
But how do you even, if there is no tangibility, then how do you even see that there is a human, there is somebody there?
That is what I was trying to discover. Okay. How do they function? Right. If they cannot see each other, how do they function, right? So what kind of conversations will they have? What kind of work will they do? How will they romance each other? Okay. How will they work with each other? How will they trust each other? All those kind of things, right? So that was the idea. The idea was just to explore.
That's
it's
really
like
going very deep into the creative zone. And
we tried it for a while. Then there was this other comic that I was working on called We Are Like That Only, which was basically a parody of Indians, right? So everything that we do, and at the end of it,
we say now
exactly.
Yeah.
So we are like that only, right? So all the humor. So someone is saying something, but as the moment they turn, they do something else, right? So one of the examples. So this artist is making this entire installation about Make in India. So he has to make this installation, and he goes to buy these lights. And the Indian lights are very expensive. So he buys the Chinese lights, and then with the Chinese lights, he's making this installation, and it's called Make in India.
Okay.
So, when we go out, we're looking for the best deal, right? It doesn't matter where it comes from. I was just watching this video about how a Korean company will pay more to buy from Korea. Okay. They will say, we will buy from Korea. Even if it is more expensive than what we are getting from outside, we will still buy here. But even I have, done that. If something is, I don't then think about where it is coming from, and that mindset is, so I was poking fun at myself. I was poking fun at, the way I behave. And that is where it started from. And say, we are like that only. Okay. So we tried, a couple of other comics of these sorts.
You should publish it, Saurin.
We put it up on Instagram. But then, since we did not continue.
No, you take it seriously. You have to finish it and publish it with Spark. Okay. Yeah.
Someday there's a whole of projects. But it was good fun. It was good fun.
Yes.
And you have started mentoring. When did you start your mentoring, and how did you get into that? And your workshops, I have seen your students, they like you so much, the way you teach and all. They have, so many have come to Spark Writers Retreat also. And they told, we are Saurin students, and they're so proud of you, And what is that secret?
So, you asked me about mentoring. It's been, about, I think, 5 to 6 years, maybe a little more than that. The way it started was, I'd been writing for, at that time, around 15 years or so. And, a lot of people would come to me and ask me for my feedback, or would ask me, how do I do this? How do I write this? And one of them came to me and, said, can you mentor me? I was like, ye kya hota hai? I don't know how to mentor. I have never really taken a formal mentoring on writing. So I don't know. How do I do this? They said, please, I can't think of anyone else. And, I like what you write. If you can help me, I want to start writing as well. I said, okay, let me first figure out how to teach. So what I did was whatever I understood of whatever questions he had, I started answering them for myself, saying, okay, what would I say to this, right? And by the end of whatever 3-4 hours that I spent doing that, I realized that I can just hand over this book or whatever pages to that person and say, read it, right? Because what I had done was I had just downloaded whatever I understood as is onto paper. I said, this is not going to help, because if reading something or watching something could make us experts, the World Wide Web has all information about every single subject. Yes, books are important. Yes, videos, podcasts, all of that are important. But just by itself, it is not enough. Because we also need to know how to apply it. And we also need to get feedback on whether we are applying it in the right way. And then also what is missing, what is not. And that needs some systematic approach. So I said, this is very, very challenging. I was honestly on the verge of saying, I don't think I can do this. But somewhere, by that time, I had already done enough wrestling with my imposter syndrome. So my other side came and said, no, I'm not going to accept defeat this easily this time. I will figure it out. So I started to, look at other people who taught, online or, and said, okay, what are they doing? So just this one idea of, okay, I need to be able to teach something which is here, which has come from experience, but I do not know how to bring that out in a meaningful way. Just this, how do I do this? This curiosity that I had got me started. So I said, no, I have to figure this out. So I, said, okay, how do I teach? And I started understanding how to teach, not how to teach writing, but how to teach. Right? And that process is why I feel that, my students, if I may call them so, the reason they enjoy it is because I do not look at this in a mechanical way. I never, if I can help it, I never repeat any of my exercises. I approach each conversation the way you approach this, free flowing. Right? There is no thought process of this is what I will teach. So I don't have a curriculum.
There's nothing logic or there's
no curriculum. There's no curriculum that I have. That I will do A, then I'll do B.
You cannot have a curriculum. That's what I to feel.
Which is when a lot of people come to me and they're like, and I've worked with a lot of young children, 7, 8, 9-year-old, lots of them. Especially during the pandemic, I must have worked with nearly about, I think, 300, 400 plus kids. Online, teaching them writing. But I've also worked with all age groups, right? And a lot of times the parents would, of those children would come to me and say, what's your curriculum? Not a invalid question, maybe I would have asked the same of someone else. And I was like, I don't know what curriculum.
Something learning means there should be a curriculum.
But like I said, it's not a wrong question, right?
Yes.
Like if I have a nephew, and if I'm asking my nephew to attend something, I will ask them, what's your curriculum? What all will you cover? So it's not an invalid question. I did not have an answer to that because I was like, I don't know. I will speak with your child or a group. I will understand what is it that they're looking for, and each session I will build accordingly.
We had, Sparklighters retreat also. We had a curriculum.
I know. It's needed. You need to have something. But I struggled to really put down a curriculum because I work, in a very free flowing. Like I'm working with this architectural students right now. IES, Indian Education Society, Bandra. They're architectural students. I did one batch of electives, and now we're doing the second batch. And the first batch students came and said, sir, are you doing the same exercises that you did with us? I said, no, that's boring. We've already done that. I want to do something new.
Creative person every
So I said, I will.
It should be boring.
Yeah, it should be fun, right? So I said, I should also enjoy it.
Yes.
If I'm doing the same exercise again and again, I'll get bored. So I said, I'll speak with them. I'll understand what is it that they are looking to do, and I will build an exercise as per that. And so there's a selfish reason for me to do that. What is that reason? That each time I am asked something, I have to ensure I am able to answer it better than what I was able to last time.
Okay.
which means I have to learn. I have to absorb. I have
process your learning.
yes. So if I learn something from you and I process it and then I share that as an exercise,
Correct.
next time I meet him and I learn something from him on the same subject, I should be able to put that together. Now my exercise has to be different because I've grown. So by constantly working with youngsters and with mentees
And with yourself.
and with myself, it's a selfish motive. I'm looking to become better as a writer. Yeah, that's my reason for doing it. And so I enjoy it. And so thankfully most of the students also like it because I bring a lot more of myself into it, and they
Other
don't know
than
it's a selfish reason.
architecture, you have also mentored so many other.
Yes.
Which are the other?
So I've been fortunate, that, and honestly, it's not even luck. I think somewhere, and this happened after I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, that this understanding started to happen, that I'm actually, just a flute. The emptier I keep myself, the better the universe can play its music through me.
Okay.
So everything that comes out, especially this teaching that comes out with joy, right, is actually the universe.
That comes out as a melodious tune.
It's because
I can say,
I am
yeah.
just trying to empty myself and not have this ego of I am doing this or I am this or my experience. No. I try to just be there as a facilitator, as a medium, right, as a catalyst, and I let the universe, the creative energy, whatever you might call it, the divine energy, you can call it anything, that flows through me. And because of that, what comes out helps. Because it's not me, it's the creative, source that's coming through me. So, but I've been fortunate in the sense that I've got opportunities to, connect with many people from many walks of life.
IITs.
I'm not IITs over, but for instance, the Raisoni group, they run this festival in Nagpur called the Orange City Literature Festival. So I've been there several times, and I've taken sessions, for the students, but also the public in general on various topics. So how can you take from myths, legends, fables, our history, how can you take something from there and contemporize it?
Okay.
So for instance, I took Shakuni from his point of view, but set in the current time.
Okay.
Between two business families. So the Pandavas, I turned them into one business family, the Kauravas, cousin business families, and the same Mahabharata story, but set in the contemporary time. But Shakuni is narrating it.
Okay.
Why I did it. Why I did what I did. Why did I destroy my sister's home? There's a reason. So he narrates the entire story and how he feels regret at the end of it. So I changed it. And I used that story as a way to get the attendees of that workshop, other than the Nagpur, the Orange City Literature Festival, Nagpur.
About Shakuni.
Yes. Okay. So
very interesting.
So what I did was one of the exercises, for instance, that I did there was I said, let's take you take a myth or a legend or a fable or an epic, anything that you've been inspired by from anywhere, right? Could be Panchatantra, could be Mahabharata, could be anything. And you take a character that you like, that you find interesting, and you contemporize that. So what I did as an example was I took Shakuni. I've always found Shakuni's character to be very interesting, very, very complex.
I can say in Mahabharata he was a Susada.
According to me, he was the one who got everything rolling. All the mess that happened because he started in action. Obviously you can always keep going back to Bhisma Pitama and above, but somewhere I feel that immediate, whatever happened is how I feel it. So what I did was I took Shakuni and I brought Shakuni and everything into the present.
Okay.
And I had the Pandavas and the Kauravas as two business families, right? And the same, whatever struggle, battle happened in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, here it happens in a court.
Quote.
And the same destruction that happens to the, Kauravas, the same destruction happens here. One of them commits suicide, the kid, So the idea was that the family gets destroyed in the same way as the Kauravas did. And Shakuni, is from his point of view, he's explaining why he did what he did.
Okay.
He did it for his sister, for the love that he had for his sister. But in the end, he did not realize that in that, he was destroying his own sister's family. He realizes that in the end, but by the end of it, so I obviously...
It's already destroyed.
So I of course changed it a bit, contemporarized it, but I also had him, accept that he was the one who's responsible. So not necessarily being true to the story.
him as a hero or...
As a protagonist.
As a protagonist.
Who's flawed and who realizes at the end of it that what he did was not right.
Okay.
And it was through his narration. So what I did was then I narrated that and I asked them, I said, you pick up a fable. Okay. You pick up anything that inspired you from any of our old, scriptures, epics, Panchatantra, anything. Take that story, take a character, and you now contemporize it.
Okay.
And bring them into the present and write it from their point of view. And it was great fun. It was great fun, right? And all of them suddenly realized that they could write.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you tell someone, write a story, they'll be like, what do I write about? I don't know anything.
Yeah.
But when you give them something like, Panchatantra or something that is, then they've read and reread and heard and reheard. It's already there. The story is already there. The hare and the tortoise, or story of Arjuna and the eye, and all these stories, we've heard them since childhood, so they're already there. All I'm doing is I'm taking that story and I'm bringing it into the present moment here, and I'm changing a few things. That is easier than coming up with something from scratch.
Correct.
So a lot of people who've never written before were able to come up with something on paper. So
really, I loved this, Saurin. This concept was really...
So they were very happy, right?
Yeah.
And so I've done these kind of workshops for their students, but also, I've worked with universities like IILM in Gurgaon, where I did a 6-month workshop for them. I've worked with Rachna Sansad, with their architectural students, with, a couple of colleges, etc. And various kind of topics. So it can be writing, creative writing, but it could also be elevator pitch. It could also be, just how to think. How to think for yourself.
Think itself is, that's
because
great teaching.
It is, because today, I have had so many people come to me and say that, should I really start, learn to write? Because AI is there today, and with AI, after some time, we'll be able to write as well as we can, maybe not today, 10 years later. Then why will anyone need a writer? So what is the point, right? And the same thing, I was just having this conversation with an architectural student, and I said, today, AI is, I have not really explored architecture.
How do you think that AI, it is, how do you think, is it supporting writers? Or do writers have to follow AI, or what is your opinion on that? Because a lot of thing going on, is it not? So yeah.
So again, this is my opinion. I've not really explored this the way I would want to. I've not had the time to, but I have mixed opinions or mixed feelings rather about this. On one hand, it is like the computers and the internet. There was a time when I did not have access to a computer because computers were not easily available. They did not exist in this form. So I have grown up in that time, and then computers came, and a lot of people said that that this will not really help. But the way it evolved,
No, sorry.
ensured
There
that
was a Japanese writer, I think. She's a very famous writer. But, and she won a very prestigious international award also. But when they are able to find out that
Yes,
10%
it
of
was
that is
plagiarized.
from
it was plagiarized
AI.
by AI. So that
from AI.
So that all is already happening, and more of that will happen. My point is not about people misusing this.
Okay.
My point is people using this the way it is, and there will be a bunch of writers, and when I say writers, it could be everyone, not just writers. It could be CAs, it could be lawyers, it could be architects, who will use AI, and they will, because they use AI, they will be able to grow faster. And there will be a bunch of people who do not use AI or do not use it as well as the others do, and they will be left behind. Now, that can't be helped. I'll give you an example. Google has just launched something called Notebook LM. Okay. Now, I've just seen a video. It's not even available in India yet. At the moment, it's only available in the US. And the use cases are multiple. It's still work in progress. But what it does is, if I have no clue about what I want to write, and if I just randomly pick some notes that I've made about random subjects, and I say this note, I put it, and I'm just dumping it into this space. I've studied something, I put it. I've read something, and then I say, look at all of this and suggest topics. He'll give me 5 topics. Then I'll say, this topic, from the viewpoint of this, give me a concept. He'll give me a concept. Write the first paragraph. Within 10 minutes, I not only from nothing, no thought, not only do I have something, but
this is against the creative process, I can
That
say.
is what I mean. How can you, it's like the genie is out of the bottle. How can you stop it? So again, is this going to be absolutely authentic? No, because it is AI. AI has no feelings. It has no morality. It's not expected
whatever
to.
it gives, again, we'll have to put our yes.
So what we need to look at is not as AI as competitor or AI as rubbish or it's just a toy, but we have to look at AI as a collaborator. That's the only way to grow. Which means that how can I best collaborate with AI? Is this something that we have a choice in? No, we do not, because it's already existing.
There's a lot to learn from AI, and also a lot to teach AI.
Absolutely.
Is it not
You're
so?
right.
As
You're
we
right.
are putting in ideas, our own different ideas, it also learns.
It is. It does.
Yes.
You're right. It's a process. It's a collaborative process. We'll have to adapt.
Correct.
The way we adapted to a laptop and then a mobile, it's a technology. We'll have to adapt. The challenge is that it's growing faster, evolving faster than we can manage, because it has its own intelligence. So it's going to be a very, very challenging time, to be an artist, to be anything that is creative. But we'll manage. That's what humans
Saurin,
do.
one last question to you. Like Bhagavad Gita, you have been, I have been listening to your Spotify, those podcasts, and it's so touching, the creative, from Bhagavad Gita shlokas, how does a creative soul evolve, or that is a really wonderful topic. How did you get into this, and what is your intention about that, and what do you want to say to the public about this?
So this, the Bhagavad Gita, podcast, it's called Bhagavad Gita for the Creative Soul. More than anything else, I would say I have honestly done nothing. I have just let the universe play the music through me, and whatever has come to me, I've just put it down onto paper. Because I have tried, we have tried so hard to come up with, various podcasts and various ideas. None of them worked. Nothing moved, right? And I had almost given up on the idea of doing something in the audio space. This is last 2 years or so. And then December 2022, I attended a retreat where, and I'm an agnostic, I'm a Hindu, but I'm an agnostic. I'm not a very religious person. My wife is very religious. My parents are very religious, but I somehow, was always this questioning kind of a person that I don't know, etc., etc., etc. I believe in consciousness, that the universe is conscious, that the universe exists as a conscious entity.
Maybe
I believe in that.
In traditions and
I would not say I disbelieve in it, but my question would be, why do I need to do this? Or what is the reason behind it? If you ask me, it's another conversation altogether, but I had kind of drifted. And there were experiences that happened in temples, etc., with certain, again, we'll not get into that, that made me want to kind of drift away.
Okay.
So when I attended this retreat, it's run by ISKCON, so it was a workshop. I was there just to enjoy the place. It's a beautiful place. I was just there for that. I said, I'm enjoying myself. You do whatever you want to my wife and my friend. I said, you go attend aartis, etc. I'm not interested. Now, first afternoon, there's a 5-day Bhagavad Gita course. 3-4 hours. And I was like, okay. I will always be willing to have a conversation about anything. I said, okay, let's go and attend. Let's see how it is. I'll learn something. I attended, and Nimalila Prabhu, thanks to him, I was able to have such an amazing time because the conversation that we had, yes, it is a conversation between, Lord Krishna and Arjun, but it was also a conversation that we were having with each other, amongst ourselves, with, Prabhuji. And all that got me thinking that the Bhagavad Gita is not about religion. It's not about, being a Hindu. It's a way of life. It's a guide.
Correct.
And that just kind of blew my mind that, this Bhagavad Gita has been lying on my bookshelf for years. I've never touched it. What was I missing? So all I did was whatever I understood, little I understood, maybe 0.0001% that I understood, I said, I need to use this. Otherwise, it's satsang. I go there, I spend 10-20 hours and I go back to my life. I have to use this. How do I use this? I need to write about it. Because that's the one way in which I know that if I write about something, I will be able to apply it. Otherwise, it will be lost. I started writing about it. And it's like, what am I writing? Everyone has written, so many people have written about the Bhagavad Gita and they're scholars. What will I write? I said, no, this is not really making sense.
Yours is a very different perspective.
It happened.
And I want all the readers to go through your Spotify, that Bhagavad Gita, this podcast. It's really, really.
And I'll tell you where it came from.
Yeah.
It came from this understanding that the Bhagavad Gita can be a guide for me personally. Forget about the rest of the world. I can use it for myself.
Correct.
How? So I said, right now, what am I suffering from the most? And one of the things that I was at that time, trying to figure out is how authentic am I in my writing? Okay. And I felt I'm not very authentic because I suffer from imposter syndrome. So I was like, I fake. I try to write what others want. So I was going through that. I said, let me see if there is something in the Bhagavad Gita that can help me with this. And I found something.
Uddhared atmanatmanam, natmanam avsadayet. Atmaiva hya atmano bandhur, atmaiva ripur atmanah. Chapter 6, verse 5. One should elevate oneself by their own efforts and resist degradation, for the mind is a friend of the self, and the mind is an enemy of the self.
But what does it mean? This elevating oneself, this knowing of the higher self. How do I ensure my mind is a friend, not an enemy? How do I learn from the past without staying bitter, work for the future without any anxiety, and be clear in the now? In episode 2, Creating Without Attachments, one of my actionable was to keep in the present moment by applying Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. 3 months hence, I'm here to tell you that doing so is tougher than it seems. Not that you needed me to tell you that. However, a few action steps are working better than the others. For instance, begin and end my day with something inspiring and life-affirming. Limit my exposure to news or information that causes worry and confusion. Simplify my life by eliminating or reducing tasks that do not add value to my purpose-driven goals. Focus on what is possible now. Learn from my mistakes, but stop dwelling on them. Give myself the space to grow as self-awareness and transformation needs patience and persistence. Reach out more often for support, be it from mentors, family, or friends. Be grateful for what has been, what is, and what will be. Everything that happens for a reason, whether I know and understand or do not. And finally, keep forgiving myself for being anxious. How will we know if these will work? Check in with me on these 3 months hence.
Now I don't read Sanskrit, so I can't, tell you what shlok it was. I will not even try. But I found a shlok, and as I started to read it and understand it, I got an insight that helped me to deal with trying to be authentic, helped me deal with imposter syndrome. And it was almost like an epiphany, like, wow, this is not solved, but I have a way to solve this.
Correct.
And that was so thrilling.
Yeah.
It almost felt as if the universe is saying, enough struggle, here's the answer.
Here's the answer. You
Right.
have got a solution.
I've got a
for
solution.
all your...
For that, so I immediately started to write it down. I turned it into a blog. And then I said, okay, what else? Now I got greedy. I said, what else can I find? So I started reading more of the Bhagavad Gita. And there were more problems. I started getting answers. I was like, this is amazing. I am not reading this for someone else. I'm reading this for myself and applying it for myself.
Yeah.
Right? As I started doing that, a couple of friends said, why don't you turn this into a podcast? We've been thinking about a podcast. Why don't we do this and turn this into a podcast? I'm like, okay, I'll write it. Someone can narrate it. No, you narrate it. It's your story. I said, I am not narrating it. I don't want to get into podcasting. I don't want to become a host. They're like, it's your story. What you've learned. How can someone else read it? I said, okay.
You have narrated it.
I had to narrate it because it's my story and someone else reads it, it would not make sense.
Correct.
So you have no idea how terrible I was when I started off with it. But it happened. It's the universe's grace. Krishna, universe, whatever you call it.
Krishna
They wanted this to happen. So it happened.
Okay.
I was just a medium. But it was great fun. We did 25 episodes on 25 subjects.
Okay. And still you're going...
Now we've taken a break because we realized that we needed to rethink some things, but the universe turned off its tap and said, take a break. So we took a break.
Okay, Saurin, it was very
Thank
nice talking to you. A lot of insights, a lot of learning. And I know now why your students like you so much. The
Thank
way, the creativity, it just flows like a...
It's all thanks to you. You're a fantastic host. So you made me so comfortable just being in this space that I'm just going on and on with my with my talk. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Saurin.
Thank you.